Hello guys, welcome back to another Jackal Productions video, and today is the first GES of 2023. I meant to make another one much earlier of other films that I saw after 2022 that came out in 2022, but that wouldn't really make a good video, and that feels like kind of cheating. If anything, I will make that into a short sometime soon, which I probably won't. I haven't made a GES in a few months because, well, I haven't had too many good topics to do it about, and the good topics that I do have that I've been sitting for a long time, I don't really have the energy and passion to do them. But I plan to do this, which I have wanted to do for a long time, which is review both live action and animated Star Wars series. Today I will be reviewing Star Wars animated series. And first up is, while not animated or a series, I might as well include it in this video as within it is an animated segment. And, well, we all know of the quality of the actual Star Wars Holiday Special itself. It could have been interesting if it wasn't so cheesy and if his budget was a little higher, but I'll let my review speak for itself. The actual animated Boba Fett segment within it is a very interesting, not only in its animation style, but in the way which the story is told. It is a misadventure of Luke Skywalker and the rest of the Star Wars crew that I wish we could have seen more shorts of throughout the 80s, 90s, and actually 70s, since this is when the special came out. The segment itself is pretty good and works well enough, and it's really cool how this is where they introduce Boba Fett. There's an interesting premise, things are set up well, and characters must face challenges. What more does this need to have? It must be said that I watched the Star Wars Holiday Special, the Star Wars Droid series, and the Star Wars Ewok series, as well as the Star Wars Clone Wars 2003 series, but that doesn't really apply here, all for free on YouTube before it was on any streaming service. So the lengths I went to be able to make this video must be applauded by myself, but it also added to the vintage feeling of watching all these series, especially Star Wars Droids, which is the weirdest of all these animated series. It's kind of dull and doesn't really have too much going for it, but it's very interesting to see that it was made in the first place. The show kind of fumbles around and has random things happen, but I appreciate it for existing. I give this show a 6 out of 10. It's better than She-Hulk. Star Wars Ewoks is a pretty good Care Bears ripoff, and there's a lot of entertaining fluff that definitely had some potential, but squanders it. I give this show a 6.5 out of 10, and it is better than Star Wars Droid. Now we skip to the 21st century with Star Wars Clone Wars from 2003, and yeah, this show is great. It's made by Genndy Tartakovsky, and it was made to fill the gaps in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and it does so very well, showing what happened in the Clone Wars during that time with both phases, and leading into the events directly before the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, which is a very well done and cool detail. This show really shows the strength and beauty of animation as an art form, as many of the scenes lack dialogue but portray things visually and portray things so simply and perfectly, things that weren't even portrayed this well in the actual prequels, such as Anakin's gradual turn towards the dark side and hidden meanings during scenes and lightsaber duels. The action in the show is sublime and epic like never seen before, especially in animation, and definitely never seen since. And all of the stories are creative and intricate, and use different sects of Star Wars well to flesh out the prequels. Overall, the show has well done animation, a nice creative style, good storylines, and portrays its characters' inner flaws, emotion, and turmoil very well. I give this show a 10 out of 10. Before I get to the other Star Wars Clone Wars series, Star Wars The Clone Wars, I must first talk about the movie, which I did not talk about in my last Star Wars GES video. This film is pretty good, pretty decent, but it only works that way and is only of that quality when taken within the context of the show. When taken on its own, it's a little bit of a mess. And if it was meant to be the pilot to the show, there are many episodes that would have been much better pilots. But for what it is, taken at how it should be taken, the film is pretty decent, and I give it a 6 out of 10. The rest of the Clone Wars series is great. We all know this, and its biggest strength is its world building and storytelling, as most of the show is made up of multi-episode arcs, develop its characters, strengthen the prequels, and introduce us to new compelling characters. We have great action in this series and phenomenal commentaries on things such as war, human trafficking, greed, violence, and hope. So had a solid first 2 seasons, 2 I think being the weakest, 2 very strong middle seasons with 3 and 4 with great arcs in there. A great 5th season really held up by its great arcs, but mainly the Mandalorian one with Darth Maul. A 6th season that was revived by Netflix that has one really great arc and 2 other really great episodes, but otherwise is a miss. And, well, season 7. Great arcs and episodes I like to point out are the Citadel episodes from season 3, pretty much all of season 4, and especially the Umbara arcs and the Mandalore episodes in season 5, and of course the top episodes at the beginning of season 6. Almost every episode and arc in the show is great though, and I highly recommend watching it. Now on to further discussion of Clone Wars Season 7. Oh yes, almost forgot to mention the Mortis episodes. The Clone Wars Season 7 starts off with a decent arc, fills in the middle with an okay arc that is one of the weakest of the series, and finishes with a great final few episodes that are deep, heartfelt, and epic. Those final episodes of the season can be used to defend it as the best of the entire show, but sadly it is held down by the first 2 arcs. But the final arc, it's a perfect finale to the series and a great send-off. Overall, The Clone Wars is a great show with a few rocky episodes. Overall, I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Star Wars Rebels is the second Star Wars show created by Dave Filoni, but this time for Disney. And Star Wars Rebels is a very decent show that feels like its ideas are a little bit neutered and cut short when compared to the Clone Wars, but has very compelling characters, stories, and villains. The show is rich with complex characters, emotions, and character development, and it successfully integrates characters and ideas from the Clone Wars series and Legends into its canon. The show, for the most part, only escalates in quality, villains, arcs, scale, and only sometimes can feel formulaic, which is its only weakness. For the most part, each season gets better than the next, with seasons 3 and 4 being the standouts for emotional beats and character development. I have a video ranking all the seasons from a very long time ago. I do not suggest you watch it. Overall, Star Wars Rebels is a great show that deserves more credit. I give it a 9 out of 10. Star Wars Resistance is essentially a cheap, lifeless, and dull version of Star Wars Rebels, with none of the compelling characters, interesting storylines, and great moments. But it does have some interesting cameos from Captain Phasma, Kylo Ren, and other villainous characters from the sequel trilogy, if you can even call it that. And the show does have a few good episodes, but overall its characters never even click, amongst other things, which is the first thing that it would need to do as a cartoon. I give this show a 5.5 out of 10. At times, The Bad Batch is every bit as good as Star Wars Rebels and The Clone Wars, except it just feels dull, pointless, and like it doesn't have much of a sense of its own scale. There are some good episodes, but nothing as high as the highs of Star Wars The Clone Wars. And both seasons are pretty on par with each other, which I guess is a good thing. And I hope there is another season that is much better than these two, which have just been solid and have been missing the extra pizzazz that have made Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars The Clone Wars so good. But with some good stories, compelling characters, interesting ideas, and good action, I give this show a solid 8.2 out of 10. Star Wars Visions is an interesting experiment that I am glad is not canon, and is basically a Star Wars animated TV show version of the Animatrix. This anthology of completely random stories made by different Japanese anime studios ranges and varies greatly in quality, with some episodes, including the first one, The Ronin, being complete masterpieces that encapsulate certain aspects of Star Wars, such as the samurai influences, like the hence Ronin episode, or episodes such as two siblings fighting an epic space battle using the greatest powers of the Force, or just simple stories about a man on a hunt and on a quest that is opposed by an evil wizard. But other episodes feel kind of random, inconsequential, and like they don't have too much to say, when these episodes had a lot to say about Star Wars and its own characters in such a short amount of time. And Season 2 has been pretty on par with Season 1, and they both had some great episodes. Overall, I give this show a 7.8 out of 10. Star Wars Tales of Jedi was a welcome and swift surprise that came out at the tail end of 2022 that was announced a year before, that we didn't hear a lot of information or see a lot of footage for. But if the 100% on Rotten Tomatoes is anything to show for it, this show is great. And unlike other Star Wars stories, and unlike stories, prequels, and anthologies for other franchises, this story does not feel contrived, and the stories told in this show are completely necessary and needed to be told, such as the inclusion of Count Dooku's turn to the dark side as Darth Tyrannus, and even including characters that haven't been used at all or explained in canon, such as Yaddle, and further adventures with Ahsoka and how she got her white lightsabers and confronted the Sixth Inquisitor. And every one of these stories is told artfully, and every 20-minute episode is told with so much depth, and with all the characters being compelling, and with every episode leaving you with a sense of awe. So yeah, this show was great and is essential Star Wars viewing. I give this show an 8.5 out of 10. And thank you for staying till the end. And if you are hearing this, well, you shouldn't be, because it's over. Goodbye. Go away. Nobody likes you. I'm kidding.